Richard's
Please,
voice
Richard, I
cracked through the
didn't mean for
silence.
any of this
Tell
to
me it's not
happen.
true,
You
Emily.
have to believe
She
me.
froze at the doorway, still
Why?
clutching her purse, mascara streaking down her cheek. Richard, please. You were going to kill me? His voice trembled, not from fear, but disbelief. Her lips parted, but no words came. I gave you everything, he whispered. Everything. The room was heavy. Outside, the rain hammered against the window, a rhythm too cruelly fitting for the moment. He looked at her one last time. I even rewrote my will for you. Then, silence. The kind that follows a man who just realized the woman he loved had built his coffin with her kisses. 6 months earlier, Richard Cole was known across New York as the man who never smiled twice. He owned half the Skyline hotels, real estate, tech startups, but his mansion was always quiet, too quiet. At 64, Richard had everything, except company that wasn't paid for. His first marriage ended in betrayal, his second in exhaustion. The women who followed were younger, prettier, but emptier. None stayed long enough to remember which wine he liked with dinner. That changed the day Emily walked into his art gallery. She wasn't like the others. She didn't ask who he was. She asked why he collected pieces of loneliness. You see sadness in all your art, she said, tilting her head. But I think it's peace, just unspoken. He hadn't realized he'd smiled until she pointed it out. 2 months later, his nephew Marcus, a 32-year-old corporate lawyer, sat across from him at their favorite restaurant, stirring his drink. You're seriously dating a 24-year-old? Marcus asked. Richard's lips curved. Don't start. I'm not judging, you're 64. I'm aware. I mean, she's beautiful, but are you sure she's not? After my money? Richard finished for him. You sound like the others. Because we care. Richard sighed. Marcus, she's kind. She listens. Do you know how rare that is for someone my age? Marcus leaned forward. I know how rare sincerity is for someone hers. For a moment, Richard's face softened, not in anger, but reflection. You think I'm blind? He asked quietly. I've been lonely, Marcus. Maybe that makes me foolish, but it also makes me human. That night, Emily joined him by the fireplace, her hair damp from the rain, cheeks glowing from the heat. You look like you've been thinking too hard, she teased. Maybe I have. About us? About how someone like you ended up with someone like me. She smiled. You make it sound like a crime. I make it sound like a miracle. Emily reached for his hand. You're not old to me, Richard. You're calm. You don't play games. You don't make me feel small. He chuckled softly. That's the first time anyone's described me as calm. Maybe that's why I love you, she said, tracing circles on his palm. For the first time in years, Richard believed it. Across town, a different truth simmered. Emily stood in her apartment later that night, wearing one of Richard's shirts. A young man, bare-chested and restless, leaned against the counter. Cal. You smell like his cologne again, he muttered. She rolled her eyes. Because I have to. You don't have to do this, Emily. Then how do we pay rent, Cal? Your part-time job at the bar? He scowled. Watch it. She softened her tone, stepping closer. This is our ticket out. He's worth billions. And he trusts me. Cal stared at her. What's the plan? She smirked. We get married. I inherit 80% if he dies of natural causes. His eyes widened. You're serious? Dead serious. He laughed bitterly. You're crazy. Maybe, she said, turning away. But soon, we'll never worry about money again. Weeks passed. Richard's home felt warmer than it had in years. Emily decorated the empty spaces, laughed through dinners, kissed him softly before bed. He'd wake at 2 a.m., watch her sleeping, and thank God for giving him one last chance at love. Until one evening, she caught him by surprise. I was thinking, she said, wrapping her arms around him from behind. Why don't we make this official? He turned to face her. Official? Marriage. He blinked, amused. I was going to ask you the same thing. Her eyes widened, tears filling fast, perfectly rehearsed. Oh my God, Richard. He laughed, brushing her cheek. You've made this old man happier than he deserves to be. I love you, she whispered. I believe you, he said, and for him, It was the truth. When Marcus heard the news, his jaw nearly dropped. "Tell me you're signing a prenup," he said during their next meeting. Richard shrugged. "She doesn't want one. She doesn't want one." "Of course she doesn't. She's marrying a billionaire." Richard smiled faintly. "You don't understand, Marcus. It's not about money." Marcus leaned forward. "Uncle, everything is about money when there's this much of it." Richard's tone hardened. "That's enough." Marcus sighed. "Fine. You won't listen now. Just promise me you'll be careful. I've lived through worse." "Yeah," Marcus said quietly, "but heartbreak kills slower." Later that night, Emily's phone buzzed. "Cal, we're meeting the doctor tomorrow. Don't forget." "Emily, relax. Everything's going according to plan." She turned to Richard, sleeping peacefully beside her. For a moment, guilt flashed across her face, brief, fragile, human. Then, it vanished. She leaned over, kissed his forehead, and whispered, "Almost over. They say love can heal, but in the wrong hands, it becomes a weapon." For Richard Cole, it wasn't the loneliness that would end him. It was believing that someone finally loved him back. The clinic looked too clean to be legal. White walls, white lights, the kind of place that felt sterile enough to hide sin. Emily walked in beside Cal, her sunglasses doing little to hide the nervous twitch in her eyes. The receptionist didn't ask for names, just nodded once and said, "Dr. Leon is expecting you." Inside, Dr. Leon sat behind a desk of glass and chrome, every movement slow and deliberate. He wasn't the kind of man you met by accident. His reputation lived in whispers, the kind that never reached daylight. He smiled faintly. "So, you're the girl?" Emily nodded. "Yes." Cal leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "You said you've done this before." Leon ignored him. "You understand the risk." Emily hesitated. "We're not killing him. We just need it to look natural." Leon's smile widened. "Of course. A man his age, heart problems, stress death can be encouraged to visit without knocking." Her throat went dry. "Encouraged how?" He slid a small vial across the table. "A drop in his drink, once a week. It slows the heart. Looks like nature taking its course. Within 3 months, he'll sleep and never wake." Cal stared at it like it was treasure. Emily looked like she'd seen her future and hell shaking hands. Leon leaned closer. "When it's done, my people get 30%. That's the rule. No mistakes." Emily nodded numbly. "Understood." Later that night, back at Richard's mansion, the sound of jazz filled the living room. Richard sat by the fireplace, swirling his whiskey, waiting for her. "You're late," he said, not angrily, just tired. "I went to see a friend," she said quickly. He raised an eyebrow. "A friend?" "Yes, from college. You wouldn't know her." He didn't press. He never did. That was part of what made him so easy to love or deceive. "Emily," he said softly, "do you ever think about what people will say? About us? She smiled faintly. "People talk because they're bored. We give them something to talk about." He chuckled, but his eyes were searching hers. "You really think this will last?" "If you keep loving me like this," she said, walking to him, "then yes." He looked away, almost embarrassed. "It's been a long time since I felt needed." Her heart twisted for a moment, guilt trying to breathe, then Cal's words echoed in her head. 3 months. Then, we're free. Meanwhile, Marcus was growing restless. He'd seen the way Emily looked at Richard, too polished, too perfect. Love was rarely that tidy. He confided in his friend, Detective Rachel Monroe, over coffee. "I'm not saying she's a killer," Marcus said, "but something doesn't add up." Rachel sipped her drink, raising an eyebrow. "You think she's after his money?" "I think she's after something. You could just hire someone to keep tabs." "I did." Rachel leaned forward. "And?" Marcus hesitated. "She's been visiting a private clinic downtown, twice a week, under a fake name." Rachel's expression darkened. "That's not good." Can you check it out quietly? I'll see what I can do. A week later, Emily found herself holding the vial over Richard's drink. Her hand trembled. One drop, that's all it would take. She looked at him, sitting there in his robe, humming an old Sinatra tune, unaware that love was being measured in milliliters beside him. He turned and smiled. You okay, sweetheart? You look pale. She quickly smiled back. I'm fine, just tired. He took the glass from her hand and raised it to his lips. Richard, she blurted. He paused. Yes? Maybe you shouldn't drink tonight. Your doctor said you've been overworking. He laughed. You're right. My heart probably appreciates the night off. He set the glass down. Emily nearly collapsed from relief. Later, she stared at the untouched drink, her mind spinning. She told herself she wasn't a murderer, just someone trying to survive. Days turned into weeks. The wedding preparations began. The media called it the marriage of spring and winter. Every camera loved her. Every lens adored him for loving her. But behind the glitter, something darker brewed. Rachel had found something. She called Marcus late one night. You were right, she said. That clinic, it's connected to an underground network. They've been tied to at least 3 unexplained deaths of wealthy men. Marcus froze. Jesus! And get this, your uncle's fiancée was there under the name Evelyn Dean. He clenched his jaw. Can you get proof? Working on it. But Marcus, if what I think is true, your uncle's in danger. That weekend, Marcus showed up at Richard's estate unannounced. Emily answered the door, perfectly poised. Marcus, she exclaimed, you didn't say you were coming. I don't need an invitation to see my uncle. Her smile tightened. Of course, he's in the garden. He brushed past her, ignoring the perfume she wore, the one Richard had bought her in Paris. Richard greeted him with open arms. Marcus, you look worried. Work again? Marcus forced a smile. Something like that. They sat under the gazebo, the sun falling low behind them. Uncle, Marcus said carefully, I need you to answer me honestly. Are you sure about Emily? Richard chuckled. We're back to this again? I'm serious. You don't know what she's capable of. Marcus, I appreciate your concern, but I've lived long enough to know when someone loves me. Do you? Marcus asked quietly. Because love doesn't hide things, and she's hiding plenty. Richard's smile faded. What are you implying? Marcus sighed. I think she's dangerous. Richard stood up slowly. That's enough. Whatever your issue is, leave her out of it. Uncle. I said enough. Marcus exhaled deeply. All right, just remember I warned you. He left, his words echoing long after he'd gone. Emily appeared moments later, eyes wide. What did he say? Richard looked away. Nothing worth repeating. But the way his hand trembled said otherwise. That night, Emily met Cal at a motel on the edge of town. He's getting suspicious, she said. Then hurry up, Cal snapped. Leon's not patient. I tried. I couldn't do it. Cal grabbed her arm. You think you can back out now? You think Leon will let that happen? Her heart raced. You're scaring me. Good, because if you don't finish this, someone else will. The perfect lie was beginning to crack. And when lies crack, they don't just reveal the truth. They spill it like blood. Richard's world was about to collapse, and the woman holding the match was already trembling. Marcus didn't like Emily from the beginning, not because she was young or because she was beautiful, but because she was too perfect, too polished, too calculated. Every smile felt rehearsed, every tear too well timed. But when you tried to warn a man like Richard, a man starved of affection, logic didn't stand a chance. And Marcus knew that. Still, that night, he couldn't hold back. It was 9:14 p.m. when Emily walked into Café Lorraine, sleek, confident, wearing that same black trench coat that always made heads turn. Marcus was already there, sitting near the back with a file in hand and eyes that looked ready for war. She approached slowly, pulling off her gloves. Marcus, she said, sliding into the seat opposite him, you said it was urgent. He didn't look up. He tossed a photo across the table. Emily, Outside Dr. Leon's clinic, her hand on Cal's chest. Her lips parted slightly. You followed me? I didn't have to, he said flatly. You were sloppy. Emily smirked faintly. You really should get a hobby. Marcus leaned forward. You're playing with a man's life. She gave a soft laugh. Oh, please, don't make it sound so dramatic. You think I'm joking? I know what you and Cal are planning. She tilted her head, feigning confusion. What exactly are we planning? The clinic, the will, the insurance. Leon's name keeps popping up in every mysterious death tied to wealth transfers. He lowered his voice. You're part of a syndicate, Emily. Don't deny it. She exhaled, feigning amusement. Marcus, do you hear yourself? You sound paranoid. I'm not paranoid. I'm protective, he said coldly. Richard's like a father to me. Something flickered in her eyes, the faintest shadow of irritation. Then she leaned in. If you're so protective, maybe ask yourself why he needed me in the first place. Marcus frowned. Because he's lonely, she continued softly. Because no one, not even his beloved godson, cared enough to see how broken he's been since his wife died. Marcus clenched his jaw. Don't twist this. She smiled faintly. You all left him alone. I didn't. He leaned closer. You mean you saw a man desperate for love and took advantage of him? Call it what you want, she murmured. But he's happy now. Until you kill him. Her expression hardened. Watch your mouth. Marcus's voice rose slightly. I know about Cal. You think I don't recognize the man you sneak around with? You think I don't know Leon's clinic is the center of this operation? She flinched, not from fear, but anger. You don't know anything about me. Oh, I know enough, Marcus said. Enough to ruin you. She smiled, cold and slow. You won't, because you'd rather die than break his heart. For a moment, Marcus said nothing. She was right, and she knew it. He exhaled. Don't do this, Emily. Walk away before it's too late. Too late? She whispered, leaning back. It's already done. Her tone sent a chill down his spine. What does that mean? She stood, pulling her coat around her. It means you should mind your business. And pray I don't tell Richard you're threatening me. Marcus stood too. This isn't over. It is, she said, her voice calm but deadly. You don't scare me, Marcus. You never will. She turned and walked out, leaving him standing there with anger burning in his chest and dread curdling in his gut. That night, back at the mansion, Richard was by the fireplace, glasses low on his nose, reading. He looked up when Emily walked in. There's my girl, he said warmly. Long day? She smiled softly. Long, but worth it. He reached for her hand, and she kissed his forehead. You work too hard, she teased. I have to keep up with you, he said, chuckling. She smiled, that gentle curve of her lips that made him believe in warmth, in love, in something beyond loneliness. I made tea, she said, walking toward the kitchen. Herbal, the one you like. Perfect, he said, turning back to his book. As she poured the tea, her hand trembled just once. Inside her purse was a tiny capsule, white, unmarked, the first of 3 she'd been given by Dr. Leon. Just a mild dose, Leon had said. It mimics arrhythmia. He'll look tired, a bit weak, harmless, at first. Her throat tightened as she stirred the tea, watching it dissolve. When she returned, she handed him the cup, smiling as if nothing had changed. He looked up at her lovingly. You spoil me too much. Maybe I like spoiling you, she said softly. He took a sip. Tastes perfect. Her heart skipped a twisted cocktail of relief and guilt. I'm glad. They sat in silence for a while, the fire crackling. Richard broke it first. You've been distant lately. Everything all right? She smiled faintly. Just tired. The wedding plans, they're overwhelming. He reached over and took her hand. If it's too much, we can slow down. She shook her head. No, I want this. I want you. He smiled, squeezing her fingers. You make me believe I can love again. Her eyes softened, and for a split second, she believed it too. Then the thought of Cal's voice came back. Don't get soft. Finish it. Richard coughed lightly, setting down the cup. Maybe too much tea, he joked. She leaned in. You okay? Just a little dizzy, he said, rubbing his temple. Her pulse quickened, but her face remained calm. It's probably your blood pressure, she said gently. You've been skipping your meds again, haven't you? He smiled weakly. You know me too well. I do, she said quietly, brushing her hand across his cheek. He looked up at her kind eyes, trusting eyes, and for the first time in years, he felt loved. Emily, he said softly, promise me something. What? If anything ever happens to me, don't let the world make you bitter. Her throat tightened. Why would you say that? He smiled. Because you remind me of the girl I used to dream about, full of light. I want her to stay that way. She blinked, and a tear slipped down her cheek. You don't know who I really am, she whispered. He chuckled. I know enough. No, she said softly. You don't. He reached for her hand again. Then show me. She smiled through tears, leaning in to kiss him. Maybe one day? Later that night, as he slept, she stood by the window watching the city lights through the glass. The moon reflected her face, beautiful, guilty, unreadable. Her phone buzzed. Cal, done? She stared at the screen for a long time, then typed, yes, first dose. A moment later, another message came through. Cal, good, don't lose your nerve now. 2 more and it's over. She turned off the phone and looked back at Richard, sleeping peacefully, his chest rising and falling. He looked so fragile, so human. A part of her wanted to crawl into bed, hold him, and whisper she was sorry. But another part, colder, darker, whispered that sorry didn't pay debts. She wiped her tears and whispered to herself, I'll finish this. Then I'll be free. But freedom, she didn't realize, was the one thing she would never taste. The morning after the first dose, Emily woke up to the sound of Richard coughing in the bathroom. It was faint at first, then heavier, deeper. She slipped out of bed, her robe loose around her shoulders. Richard? He turned to her, pale but smiling. I'm okay, sweetheart. Just a little dizzy. Must have stood up too fast. Her stomach tightened. Maybe we should call Dr. Leon. He waved her off. No hospitals. I hate those places. I'll be fine. He kissed her forehead. You worry too much. She forced a smile. Someone has to. As she watched him walk away, his steps slower than usual, a faint chill ran down her spine. The poison was working subtle, gradual, invisible. And yet, the guilt was worse than she'd imagined. Later that day, she met Cal in a parking lot behind an abandoned diner off Route 18. He was waiting in his truck, shades on, cigarette burning low between his fingers. Get in, he said. She did, slamming the door behind her. You look pale, he muttered. Don't tell me you're getting soft. He coughed up blood this morning, she said quietly. Cal smirked. Then, it's working. She turned sharply. You said it would be slow. He shrugged. Maybe he's weaker than we thought. Good for us. Good for us? She hissed. You make it sound like we're killing a stranger. Cal leaned closer. That's exactly what we're doing, babe. A stranger with $200 million and a heart that barely beats. She looked away. You don't understand. He chuckled. Oh, I understand just fine. You fell for him. I didn't, she said sharply. He grinned. You almost sound like you're trying to convince yourself. She grabbed her purse, ready to leave. He caught her wrist. You're not backing out now, are you? She yanked her hand away. No, I'll finish it. Good, he said, flicking his cigarette. Because Leon wants the final dose tomorrow night. The will gets signed next week. We can't risk him living long enough to change it. She nodded stiffly, eyes hard. Tomorrow, then. Cal smirked. That's my girl. But as she walked away, her heart pounded with something she hadn't felt in years, fear. Not of getting caught, but of losing the one man who ever looked at her like she mattered. That evening, Marcus showed up at the mansion uninvited. Emily was arranging flowers in the living room when the doorbell rang. She froze. Then she heard his voice through the intercom. It's Marcus. I need to see Richard. She hesitated, then pressed the button. He's resting. Then I'll wait. She opened the door reluctantly. You can't keep coming here. He stepped inside anyway. And you can't keep lying to him. Marcus, please, she whispered, glancing toward the hallway. I'm done talking, he said. You think I didn't check Leon's background? He's already under investigation for malpractice. And Cal, he's wanted in 2 states for fraud. Her heart skipped. You have no proof. He smiled grimly. Proof is for the police. I just need Richard to hear the truth. He won't believe you. He will when he sees this. He held up his phone, a video of her and Cal in the parking lot that morning. Emily's face went pale. You followed me again? Call it protection, Marcus said. I'm saving him from you. Before she could reply, a voice echoed down the hallway. Save me from who? Richard stood there weak, but alert, his hand resting on the wall for support. Emily's throat closed. Honey, it's not. Marcus cut in. She's lying to you, Richard. She's been poisoning you. Richard frowned. What? Emily's voice trembled. He's lying. He's obsessed. Enough, Marcus shouted, showing him the video. Richard stared at the screen at Emily's face, her hand on Cal's wrist, her lips moving in whispered words of conspiracy. He dropped the phone, his breath shallow. Emily, he whispered, tell me that's not you. Tears filled her eyes. I can explain. Explain? His voice cracked. Explain what? That you love another man? That you're trying to kill me? It's not what it looks like, she pleaded. Then what is it? He asked, bitterly. You said you loved me. I do, she cried. I didn't want it to be like this. Marcus stepped forward. She's dangerous, Richard. We need to get you to a hospital. Shut up, Richard snapped. Both of you. He turned back to Emily, his voice breaking. Why? After everything, why? She fell to her knees, sobbing. I was desperate. You wouldn't understand. Try me, he said hoarsely. I owed Cal money, she whispered. It was supposed to be fake, just a plan. But then I met you, and you. Her voice cracked. You made me feel something again. He stared at her for a long moment, tears in his eyes. Then he said quietly, You could have asked for help. You didn't have to kill me. Her sobs filled the room. I'm sorry. Marcus's phone buzzed. He glanced down an unknown number, one message, We know. Before he could react, a gunshot shattered the air. Emily screamed. Cal burst in through the back door, gun in hand, eyes wild. Move! He barked at Marcus. Marcus reached for his own weapon. Too late, Cal fired, grazing his arm. Richard stumbled backward, clutching his chest. Cal, stop! Emily shouted. This wasn't the plan. The plan's changed, Cal shouted. You think I'm letting you run off with the money alone? Marcus groaned, gripping his bleeding arm, and lunged forward, knocking Cal's wrist upward as another shot went off straight into the ceiling. Emily screamed again. Richard collapsed to his knees, gasping, his heart seizing under the stress. Richard, she cried, running to him. His lips moved faintly. Why, Emily? Why? Cal shoved Marcus away, turning the gun on her. He's gone anyway. Let's go. Emily looked at Richard, the man she was supposed to kill, the man who somehow still looked at her like she mattered, and whispered, No. Cal blinked. What? I'm done. She stood up slowly, facing him. You used me, she said quietly. All of you. But I'm not your pawn anymore. Cal sneered. You think you're some kind of saint now? After all this? She didn't answer, just stared, eyes hollow, tears streaking her face. Then Marcus, bleeding but alive, slammed into Cal from behind. The gun went off again, this time into the wall. Emily had called the police. Sirens wailed outside. Cal tried to run, but Marcus tackled him down just as 2 officers burst in through the front door. Drop it, one shouted. Cal struggled, then froze as the cold steel of a gun pressed to his temple. Emily just stood there, trembling, staring at Richard's motionless body on the floor. 2 months later, Richard survived. Barely. A mild heart attack, the doctors said, but no lasting damage. Emily and Cal were both convicted: conspiracy, attempted murder, financial fraud. Cal got 25 years. Emily got 12. She never spoke during the trial, except once when Richard came to testify. He looked older now, thinner, but his eyes were steady. When she was led into the courtroom, he looked at her and said softly, "I forgave you." She trembled. "Why?" "Because I loved you," he said. "And love, no matter how foolish, shouldn't turn into hate." Tears streamed down her face as they took her away. 6 months later, Marcus visited Richard at his home. The old man was sitting by the fireplace again, just like the first night Emily poisoned him. He looked up and smiled faintly. "Still my guardian angel, huh?" Marcus chuckled. "You'd be dead without me." "Maybe," Richard said quietly, "but sometimes I wonder if dying would have been easier." Marcus frowned. "Don't say that." He smiled sadly. "She made me believe again, Marcus, even if it was all a lie. For a moment. It felt real. That's more than most men get in a lifetime." Marcus nodded slowly, his throat tight. "You're a better man than I'd ever be." Richard chuckled softly. "No, just an older one." They sat in silence for a moment, watching the fire. Then Richard said quietly, "You ever think some people are sent into our lives just to remind us how fragile trust really is?" Marcus nodded. "Yeah, and how love, in the wrong hands, becomes a weapon." Richard looked at the flames. "Maybe, but I'd still rather be the fool who believed than the one who never did." In the end, Emily's sin wasn't that she wanted wealth, it was that she thought love could be faked and still feel real. But love, like poison, always leaves traces. And Richard, he lived with both.